It's the Jack and Joe show in the last international break of the year. Thank the Lord. Joe Sansom, how are you, mate?
The first time was so nice, they had to do it thrice. And I do not want to watch England play at all, but I'm okay. I'm doing well. And one of the reasons I'm doing well is because Fulham have had an absolutely fantastic first quarter of the season, just over that. Nearly a third ish. I mean, it's been great, and we had another great win on Saturday, just gone. We've got a bit of time now to bed in just before we play Wolves at home. And then after that, Jack, it's what we almost spoke about a few weeks ago. It's a really tricky run of fixtures on paper, but a run that we can be quite excited about rather than fearing, and hope that we can pick up a few scalps along the way.
Of course, I should have said this is for not only YouTube, but for podcast listeners as well. We're on the pod feed again this week during this international break. And if you're not watching, and I've just noticed, is Joe Sansom growing a moustache? Is that Movember?
This is the worst attempt ever. Yes.
That took me ages to notice, to be fair.
Yeah, because it blends in. This is the problem. So for
Yeah.
anyone not watching, you're lucky because this is just pitiful. Yeah, well, thank you for being one of the first people to notice, Jack. Because honestly,
What?
this is just like I might as well have just donated the money and not done anything. To be completely honest, it's just a bit futile, but it's a very important cause,
Mm,
and I shouldn't jest too much, only a
no.
little bit. Um, but yes, just appalling. Uh, and the above is just a little cut, not from shaving.
Well,
So essentially, if you're not watching, if you're listening, I don't know who you imagine these voices are coming from, but I don't think it would be these guys. Um, but Jack, the Crystal Palace game, I wasn't there, and I'm quite
right.
gutted that I wasn't there. This was one of the few London away games that I couldn't attend this season. Hope to make the rest of them. I have secured my ticket to Tottenham, as I was telling you this week, which I'm very excited about. Because I always like going to their new stadium. Leaving it is another story because
Mhm.
Seven Sisters Road. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
But how was it on Saturday? Obviously, you were diagonally opposite the away end. Caught a bit of your live stream before. You were very optimistic. I think I was as well, watching from home. Um, what did it just live up to your expectations? I mean, I feel like there's different expectations of this Fulham team now.
Yeah, it was a strange day. I think everyone obviously had a great time. From my perspective, I had quite a stressful day. The Wi-Fi was completely down at Crystal Palace on my end, apart from on my phone. So I was tweeting from my phone, which is so frustrating. I usually tweet from my phone, maybe an under 21s game, but in terms of at the Fulham game, I was missing. You're looking down at your phone, you're trying to tweet, your hands are cold, and you're missing things. If you're on your laptop, you can like peer across whilst you're sort of typing away. So yeah, I felt like I wasn't really there, but I was there. But it was a great day, and funnily enough, I had a couple of journalists either side of me. One that covers Fulham quite extensively at Craven Cottage, and another one who I didn't. I think I recognised from Twitter, but he was a Fulham fan as well. So there was almost more Fulham representatives in the press box than there were Palace. But yeah, it was great to see. Great win. Fans made some good noise. The performance was fantastic. It was a great time to play Palace. I told you guys on the group chat on the way to the ground, I've never been more confident about a Fulham game, and thus proved to be the case. I mean, there was no creativity for Palace at all. Even Kamada was just really poor. Sarr struggled to get on the ball. And Fulham had an abundance of creativity, as I said on the podcast the other day. So many outlets, so many bits of quality on the ball. I thought Pereira played really well, but the special shout out has to go to Emil Smith Rowe and Alex Iwobi. I thought Nelson even had a very strong game, just a little bit poor in his decision making in the final third. And it was just a thoroughly enjoyable experience. I mean, we scored 4 goals. On another day that they get given, well, not on another day, but in different circumstances they could be given, or they will. You know what? Scrap that. That was VAR, so they always going to chalk it off. But what I'm saying is we're creating chances and we're
What
scoring
you're saying is if
chances.
Emile Smith-Rowe stopped doing uppers in the gym,
That was it.
that
That
makes
was
it
it.
3. And if Wilson controls the other one slightly differently, it's 4.
We're in such an incredible place. And I was speaking to someone yesterday who was saying, "Oh, we need to beat Wolves to get away from, to just get another buffer away from the relegation zone." And I was like, I think we're all right in that sense. I think that obviously, yeah, it'd be nice to beat Wolves, and I think it's a winnable game, and we do need to win it, I suppose, to some point. But I think that Fulham need to start looking upwards rather than thinking that they can slide back into a mediocrity mid-table place or even in relegation trouble. There are two teams you can sort of compare the season with so far. Fulham and Nottingham Forest, both sitting in very high positions in the table. I'd argue we performed incredibly way better than Nottingham Forest this season, yet sit 1 point behind them. I do expect Nottingham Forest to slide. We saw that on Sunday when they had the lead against Newcastle and they let it go, and they were pretty poor in the second half. I don't expect Fulham to slide. I'm not expecting us to slide right now. I think there could be a drop off in that run of fixtures that you say that we have, obviously coming up. But I think there are points to be had. There are points to be had in these games, and starting with that, Spurs away game at the start of that run, I think that's where we could get some joy, Joe. Talk to me about some individual performances. I mean, it does feel as if we're starting to see Emile Smith-Rowe, the player that we were all excited about signing last couple of weeks, last couple of games. He's been magnificent. And also Sander Berge is really taking to that spot now, where it's a question of if Lukic is back, he doesn't necessarily get straight back in the team.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you take these last 4 games into an almost mini league of their own between the last international break and this one, we had the Villa game where everyone, very notably Sander Berge and Smith-Rowe, were very poor. They were almost anonymous in that game. For Smith-Rowe, all that meant is that we didn't have as much going forward. But for Berge, that meant that defensively we were a little bit all over the place because his job was to shield, protect, also build from the back going the other way. I think that we've seen a steady improvement in both players in the 3 games since. I think that against Everton, they were both playing to a good enough standard. I think that Smith-Rowe was quiet for the majority, but picked his moments, led to our goal with a fantastic run. For me, that was enough from him on that day. Obviously, there was a couple of other things that he did that were maybe slightly more frustrating, but ultimately it was a big improvement. And Sander Berge had a very, very solid game, a good game. Then against Brentford, I thought they were both brilliant, and I put particular praise on Sander Berge's name because I thought it was a Polina-esque display. But Smith-Rowe was also completely running things. I mean, I don't put him going off and us scoring 2 goals, it's coincidence more than anything, because he was doing as much as anyone to try and get us those goals. He was getting into great positions. He was pulling their midfield apart. He was really giving Roerslev, who was their right back that day, some real issues, along with Nelson. And then obviously, I think we got on the trajectory going like that. For those of you not watching, it's a line that's going up diagonally. Shock. It was great. Big correlation between the time that's passed since that international break, the more time they've had to work together as a midfield 3, him, Pereira, and Smith-Rowe. And yeah, they were both fantastic. Smith-Rowe, let's face it, for that first goal, it's not just the finish, it's the fact that he intercepted the pass from Lacroix as well, and then got the ball back from him. There's a nice ball and a good finish. The fact that Henderson got a hand to it and still couldn't keep it out shows it was going right into the corner. And then obviously got a little bit unlucky with the second goal and how tight it was, but it was just offside. And then Berge, I thought, was fantastic from the first half. When we had a little bit of, I think it's gone slightly under the radar that we had a little bit of a spell in the first half that was absolutely nothing to worry about, but where we just weren't at our best, and Palace were coming ever so slightly more into the game. They had that one chance that sort of spilled through Leno, and Anderson cleared it off the line. Aside from that, not too much to worry about, but we certainly weren't playing at our best for about a 10-15 minute spell that ironically ended with us scoring from Palace's mistake. And I feel that Berge was a calm presence during that. I mean, for lack of a better word, storm. It wasn't a storm. It was just a little bit of pressure from Palace, a couple of set pieces, because they didn't have too much to offer on the day. But I was really impressed with him. And it's got to a stage where I would say until the Brentford game, even after the Everton game where I thought Berge played well, I was thinking, okay, unless he bucks his ideas up a little bit more, I'm fully expecting Lukic to come straight back in. when he's fit. And I now don't think that is the case. I think the level of performance in the last 2 games, plus Everton, which was also good, have been so high that you can't justify it. I think you guys spoke about it on the podcast previously. Marco Silva is not a guy that puts you back in for the sake of it. It is almost your place to lose rather than your place to win. And I mean, Pereira had a much better game. Otherwise, I'd be thinking, do you try Berger and Lukic together? Is that something that could work like it did at Man City? But rather than Pereira, who started that day, you could have Smith Rowe, slightly more attacking option. I think that we'd be expecting the same midfield 3, barring any, hopefully, touch wood, no injuries or anything like that over the international break. I've liked the balance of it, and I think that against Wolves, we just have to go for it. They've conceded so many goals this season, and I like the way that we sort of dealt with Palace, because Palace haven't actually conceded too many this season. I think they'd only conceded 1 more than us going into the game, so now 3. That's off the top of my head, so it might be ever so slightly wrong. It's more scoring goals that's been their issue, but I thought that second half was magnificent, the way that we just penned them back, and it was chance after chance. I really do think that on the balance of play, and the red card for me is irrelevant because Kamada might as well have been invisible anyway, in my opinion. He was god awful amongst others. 2-0, I really think in the end did flatter them. I think that we could and should probably have scored more.
No, I agree. This sort of Lukic situation reminds me of something that did happen last season. That was that Kenny Tete started the season pretty well, and then he got injured, and in came Timothy Castagna, and that was it. I think Castagna may have started every game for the rest of the season, barring maybe 1 or 2, and of course FA Cup maybe. But it's one of those situations where I don't necessarily think Lukic will start on the bench every single game for the rest of the season now. But it really is a case of, and I know this sounds harsh, and I don't think this is the wording that's sort of correct in the situation, but it's like, well, hard luck, you're injured. You're not going to just come straight back in, because it's almost as if Marco said to Sander Berger, Lukic is out injured. This is your chance now. This is your chance to actually prove what you can do in this team. And after that Villa game, everyone was incredibly underwhelmed. Very reactionary reaction from the fans, of course. What a waste of money, blah, blah, blah. He's nothing like Lukic, Paulinho, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly he turns it around. Even at Everton, I thought he was good. And then Brentford, excellent. Palace, excellent. And now it's a case of, for Lukic, it's like, well, now I'm going to have to work twice as hard to get back in the team. It's all very good stuff. You're basically getting one player performing at his highest level on the pitch, and hopefully another player performing at their highest level on the training pitch to get back in the team. And it just makes the competition more rife, and people and the expectation and the levels of performance are just increasing. And I think that's what Marco Silva has done with every single player in this squad. Harry Wilson coming off the bench. By the way, magnificent Harry Wilson run through Iwobi, and what a pass. I just think the squad's in a really, really good place right now. Maybe went over the top on the podcast, but I think it's because we're one of the highest performing. Someone made a YouTube video on it yesterday. I'm going to give it a watch later. That Silva's team are the most underrated team in the Premier League. And maybe that's the line I should have gone with, because it's basically true. I think we're absolutely. I think we're ripping it up on expected points. And I know this doesn't mean anything, but it's worth, because someone's put a table out where we're second. And it doesn't surprise me. If we had an extra 4 points, we would be further up in the table. I can't believe how good we are. I can't believe what we're doing. And it really does pose the question where I feel like this is probably the only big chance to talk about this, because of all the hustle and bustle of the December sort of Christmas period of football. January. Now, I did a video I did a podcast on my Patreon yesterday talking about how we don't really need to do much in January. I don't think we will do much in January. However, someone made a very good point that Harry Wilson, if he's going to be occupied as number 10, and you made the point on yesterday's group chat that we only have Adama, Iwobi, and Nelson as wing options. So if we're playing Wilson predominantly down the middle, do we need now a fourth winger option? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts on January overall, even regardless of position, is just that this is a real chance to kick on. And it's not like Januaries of seasons gone by where we've needed something to either save us, or we've needed something, also to say someone, to pad out the squad slightly. For example, when we brought in Lukic, we didn't need Lukic at that point. He was an extra body in midfield, one for the future almost, one to play a bit part role for the rest of the season as the understudy to Polinia. Now we've got an opportunity where there's a lot of teams that are poorer than expected this season, and the level of points, it seems like, to get Europe might be slightly lower just based on the starts that teams have had. And you know what? Why not use this as a chance to push on? What do we need the most in order to do that? I think it's a striker that in a normal season could score 20 goals. Jimenez had another great performance. But he is not that guy. He is not that guy that will push you to the next level. I think he's been fantastic. I also think that, the goals don't just have to come from there. They do have to come from the wings. And I do still think we lack the winger that is, you almost think of like a Jared Bowen type that plays for us. I know he sometimes plays through the middle as well.
Yeah.
Someone that when they actually get a clear-cut chance, it's more likely it's going to be a goal than it isn't. And I don't think that is actually the case, other than Harry Wilson in this purple patch, which I love. That is the case for any of our forward players. I think that they're all slightly misfiring, which is why they're at the club. I think that Nelson showed that. He's been putting in some great performances. I've loved what I've seen from him. I'd keep him in the team. But you can see that the decision-making, like you referenced earlier, is just not quite there. He shoots when he shouldn't, passes when he shouldn't, etc. Dilly-dallies a little bit too long. I think we're looking for that killer in front of goal. And I'm not too fussed whether that comes on the wing or up front. I think it should probably be a striker. But I think that's the next ingredient. And if we can find someone of that quality in January, we might not be able to. But if we can, we need to put down the money and we need to go for it, because I do think that it will be a missed opportunity if we don't completely go all out for trying to get some sort of European qualification this season. Because right now, things are going right. We have these players. We still have Robinson with us. We've just brought in some great talent through the door in the summer that might not always be here, one of which is on loan. It's just a great time. We still have Marco Silva. I just want to make sure we capitalise on it. But if we are going to go out this window, this coming window, and do business, I do think it should be to start games and to take us to that next level.
Just two more questions before we go. It's going to be a slightly shorter episode today. We both have things to do and people to see. I think it's important that I love Reiss Nelson. I think he's brought something to this team, a new energy, attacking threat off the bench. And now he's starting games. We've got Adama on the bench, which makes it even more dangerous for opposition teams. If it came to a scenario where we could sign him permanently, would you want to sign him permanently?
Yeah, I think I've seen enough to sign him permanently. Obviously, price dependent. I wouldn't really want to pay over 20 million, I'd say. Sort of plucked from the top of my head, if it was 21 million, I'm not going to start crying. But it's I've seen enough from him that he's got good quality. I think that there's work to be done on his finishing for sure. But you can see the technical quality he's got on the ball is extremely high, one of the highest in the squad easily. The link up he's got with Smith Rowe on that left-hand side is fantastic. Brilliant. Wonderful relationship, and he was a big danger again at Crystal Palace, and I would love to see him sign permanently, partly just because, let's face it, that's 2 more games that he can play. Well, 1 more by that point. It's just another option when we play Arsenal, for example. Currently he can't play. That'll be interesting, actually. Obviously, that's only a few weeks away. If the team was as it is right now, it'll be interesting to see who got that start, because obviously it's the left-hand side. So you imagine Iwobi might have to switch back out there. You've got the opening for Adama or for Wilson, depending on what sort of game plan we go with. So that'll be interesting. But I would very much like to sign Reiss Nelson permanently.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's shown signs that he could be a very settled Premier League player once he has a settled move. I think a loan move is very much a case of show us what you can do. And obviously it came so late on in the window where he was bouncing around different clubs trying to get a deal done, and obviously ended up at Fulham. And I think the move has worked tremendously, and he seems very happy. And obviously he's got Smith Rowe next to him. He's got Iwobi. He's got players that he knows. I just think the squad harmony right now is brilliant, and that was seen all the way back in pre-season, and we're seeing it now. And I think that's really, really important. That was the most positive pre-season I've seen from Fulham for many a year, and it's that's proving to be very, very promising on the pitch as well for Fulham. Final question. Kenny Tete, baby. Kenny Tete, please sign a contract.
100%. That's another thing we should mention, actually. I suppose that should be a priority. Doesn't have to be done in the window. Let's do it now. I mean, he has been back to his best and then some this season. I thought you mentioned it earlier. Start of last season, he was good, and then Castagna came in when he got injured. He wasn't this good. This is like how he was the season prior in 22-23 when we first came up. He was getting assists for fun. That hasn't happened yet, but it's been showing a threat going forward. But defensively, he's just been completely locking off a whole side almost single-handedly, especially when it was him and Adama, obviously doing most of the work himself. It's fantastic. Absolutely need to get him a new contract ASAP. Feel a little bit sorry for Castagna, but he's had a bit of involvement in the last couple of games. He obviously came on against Brentford, was involved in the last 10 minutes of the game and was there for us to turn it around. Came on against City as well. And obviously, if we were still in the Cup, he'd have a bit more time there. But FA Cup's just around the corner. And when we do have these games coming up where we've got, I think the Spurs to Arsenal one's a good example because it's Sunday, Thursday, Sunday that we play. You know, it's not out of the question that we have to rotate slightly just because of fatigue in the squad. Tete's the sort of player that I could see us rotating with Castagna. But on performance levels right now, it shouldn't happen. Simple as.
Hopefully what we saw with Marco, with Harry Wilson in the dressing room, that all those fringe players are also happy. They're also talking to Marco and they're also feeling part of a squad and not feeling like they're missing out too much. And yeah, I'm very lucky that Tete didn't get very badly hurt by that command attack. It was terrible.
Yeah,
Terrible tackle. Guys, we have to wrap it up. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. It's a slightly shorter podcast today, but hopefully you guys have benefited from it. We'll be back next week to preview the game against Wolverhampton Wanderers. And Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks everyone for watching and listening, and catch you next week to preview Wolves.
Enjoy your international break. Enjoy it and come on, Fulham.